Journalists Roundtable is a half-hour discussion with Pennsylvania journalists about the week's top political news and current events. Journalists Roundtable is a production of PCN, a nonprofit television network. Listeners like you make our programming possible. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit PCNTV.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.
Welcome to Journalists Roundtable. I'm Corey Clark in Philadelphia. Joining us this week from the Inside Climate News is Kylie Bentz. From the Philadelphia Tribune, Marco Serino. And Harrison Kahn from the City and State PA. We're only a couple of weeks out from the governor's budget address. So, Kylie, what were the main things that affect or talk about the governor's climate policy when it comes to his budget?
Sure. So most of the things that would relate to climate in the budget address and then in the budget proposal have to do with his energy plans. So you'll hear him talk about his lightning plan, which includes a bunch of different proposals. One of his main things is that he wants to make it easier to permit and bring online energy projects so that we can increase power generation in the state. He also has proposals for a program that would be a cap and trade program for power plants in Pennsylvania, which would help to lower greenhouse gas emissions in Pennsylvania. There's also things that are supposed to increase energy efficiency and conservation, which would help Pennsylvanians with their bills and lower electricity bills for people. So there's kind of like a suite of different programs within the budget proposal. There is a tax credit program that is meant to, like I said earlier, like help speed up permitting and bring more projects online.
Marco and Harrison, you guys can talk about this as well. She mentioned energy bills. How is that affecting the city of Philadelphia, and what are they planning to do about it? Marco.
There's been a lot of talk online, especially on Reddit, about how high the power bills and the Pico bills have been this winter. It's been very cold. The city hasn't done anything directly to address it, but folks are certainly looking for relief from the very high bills. Bills have gone up in New Jersey. Bills have gone up in New York. Bills have gone up in Pennsylvania. To tackle something like this, especially in an election year, is a big step forward for the governor. We haven't seen as much response from the city. They still own PGW. They still own, a lot of the entities within the city. Whether or not they can do things at that level, I don't know if it would wander into preemption.
We know affordability has been a big talking point too, not just locally, but nationally too, among the Democratic Party. So like you mentioned, Marco and Kylie, Shapiro's looking to try to remedy the situation with rising utility bills. But right now it seems like whether you're looking at the environmental side of things or the fiscal side of things, there's pushback on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that Shapiro has done a number of things to help keep prices from getting worse. So he's been negotiating with PJM Interconnection, which is the grid operator, to set and extend price caps that can, help to keep things from getting even worse than they even are. But I do think that the governor is trying to walk a difficult line because he's also supportive of data centers and artificial intelligence development in Pennsylvania. And as we all know, at this point, the data centers are a big part of why our electricity bills are going up and will continue to go up.
Kylie, what's the overall feeling when it comes to data centers in Pennsylvania? That's been a hot topic. You say Shapiro supports them, but there are some Republican lawmakers who are against them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's very much an evolving issue. We have seen some community pushback, like at the grassroots level, of people organizing against data centers, organizing webinars to learn about them. I think that people are really concerned, like Marco mentioned, that it's going to make their bills go up. And people have already been struggling with their utility bills in Pennsylvania for a few years now. This is not a new problem. It's just getting worse. In 2024, 1 in 4 Pennsylvania households had difficulty paying their utility bills. So that's a pretty big percentage of people. And I do think that the data center issue kind of has the ability to unite people across the political spectrum. Regardless of where they are politically, they see their bills going up. And if they connect that to data center development, you could see kind of widespread opposition.
Marco, let's keep on the environmental side of things. You wrote about some new air quality monitors in the city of Philadelphia. Is that something that Mayor Parker has made part of her agenda?
She's seeing it as part of her clean and green agenda. What's really interesting is we were out there yesterday out in, I guess, Gray's Ferry, you'd call it. It's always tricky with the neighborhoods in Philadelphia, but they have small air quality monitors that look like cameras and are attached to light poles. They feed data into a citywide network where you can type in an address and it tells you what the air quality is. It's a fairly big city. It's fairly spread out. There are neighborhoods out in Northwest Philadelphia that are a little higher elevation than if you say you're in South Philly. So if you're going out to Bridesburg, or if you're going out to visit your friend on Woodland Avenue, or if you're headed up to Broad and Olney, you can find out what it is, because there are a lot of people in Philadelphia who have issues with breathing things. We have a lot of older folks who have issues, with emphysema and asthma and decades of industrial focus that has created systemic health problems within the city. So there are a lot of people who are very sensitive to that, and being able to literally go on your phone or go on a website and type in an address and say, "Hey, what's it like?" It gives you an opportunity to say, "Okay, we can go out and do this. We can go out, take a run," or, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's reschedule.
Harrison, let's keep Mayor Parker on the agenda, and let's talk about housing. She also, as part of her agenda, is talking about some new housing in the city, introducing new modular housing. Talk about the housing crisis and how that's affected Philadelphia.
Yeah, the housing crisis definitely is an issue in Philly, but Commonwealth wide as well. It's something that Shapiro focused on in his budget, but it's also been a top priority for Mayor Parker. Her Project Home was her big legislative push. And then, yeah, just a couple weeks ago, she announced an RFI. They're seeking information on possibly creating a modular housing manufacturer up in the Northeast to assist with just meeting the needs for supply. Because right now, as you'll see many lawmakers mention, it's not just it's a supply and demand issue. So it's not just building new, it's preserving old, it's repairing people's homes that they already live in. So it really is kind of an all the above approach.
Talk about the governor's plan. This ties it. You said you mentioned that he also has a plan, and he unveiled that in Philadelphia as well. You wrote about that.
Yeah, just a week ago today, actually, he unveiled. He's pushing for $1 billion in critical investments to improve the affordable housing situation. He kind of broke it down within 5 components. Some of them I just mentioned: building new and preserving old housing, cutting through bureaucratic barriers, and redistrict or rezoning areas to make it easier to build, strengthening protections for tenants, and then also increasing support programs for people that are struggling to stay in their homes or afford utility costs that are rising.
Speaking of utility costs, let's go back to the environment. Kylie, talk about Reggie, RGGI. You've recently done an extensive piece about that and the controversy around Pennsylvania's involvement in it.
Sure. So it's a very long saga. I won't go into every twist and turn, but basically, Reggie is the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. This is a multi-state consortium. It's like a cap and trade program that's just for power plants. And the idea is to lower greenhouse gas emissions in the consortium. I think there's 11 states and DC in this consortium right now. Back in 2019, when Tom Wolf was the governor, he signed an executive order for Pennsylvania to join RGGI. Ever since that time, it has been tied up in litigation and much controversy. Pennsylvania's membership in RGGI faced a lot of criticism from the oil and gas industry and from Republican lawmakers. There was a lot of opposition pretty much immediately. Pennsylvania never actually joined RGGI. And so it was sort of just like in limbo for years. This past year, with the really protracted budget negotiations that were going on, our budget was extremely late. There was a deal made to take membership off the table to sort of end this protracted fight. And so membership in RGGI was taken off the table when that happened, much to the outrage and anger of some environmental groups who really viewed this as an important step for Pennsylvania to take to work on lowering our greenhouse gas emissions, not just now, but in the future.
And you wrote about a petition that says that Pennsylvania still needs to do something about greenhouse emissions.
Yeah, exactly. So I wrote about this petition that was filed by a group of environmental lawyers a couple weeks ago. They originally filed this petition back in 2018, but when Governor Wolf made this move to help us join RGGI, they kind of set it aside and stopped pushing it forward because they wanted to see what was going to happen with RGGI and if the state would actually join the consortium, because they viewed that as, that would be an important step. Since that's now off the table, they have basically refiled the petition, and they're asking the Environmental Quality Board, which sets regulations for the Department of Environmental Protection here in Pennsylvania, to look at the petition again and move forward. And basically what the petition is saying is that Pennsylvania has a legal obligation to act on greenhouse gas emissions, on climate change, because the legal argument is saying that they have an obligation to act because of our state constitution. So Pennsylvania is one of only a handful of states that has an environmental rights amendment in our state constitution. And it says that Pennsylvanians have a right to clean air, pure water, to natural resources, and that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is a trustee of those resources. There's been some interesting legal history in the last few years where the use of this amendment in the courts has increased. And now environmental lawyers see this as a potentially really important tool. As many of us know, our state legislature has been gridlocked and divided for a long time. And so I think that the environmental lawyers who are pushing this petition are basically seeing this as a way around that gridlock. They're arguing that under existing air pollution laws, DEP can act to lower greenhouse gas emissions without a new law being passed, basically. And their proposal, essentially the way that they want to do this, is a cap and trade program that would be economy-wide. So not just power plants, but would affect all, a large variety of industries and companies in the state, and then eventually would help Pennsylvania reach carbon neutral.
And then on the federal level, the EPA has sort of reclassified under the Trump administration just the concept of the effect that greenhouse gases have on the environment. You wrote about their stand repealing the EPA classification.
Yeah, that was very big news in my corner of the world. It is something that affects all of us. It's a huge step that the Trump administration has taken, where they've overturned this finding that was first published in 2009, so quite a long time ago. A lot of federal climate policy is based on that finding. And so, without it, that was underpinning a lot of federal climate policy. And if you talk to environmental leaders in Pennsylvania, they see this as, this really makes it even more imperative that Pennsylvania must act. Because we're not going to see a lot of action, at least during this administration, on climate policy.
Marco, speaking of this administration, Philadelphia City Council sort of preemptively tried to get out in front of ICE encounters in Philadelphia.
They've put out a series of bills that are going to go into committee to talk about how they can limit ICE interactions. Now, in the city, the responsibility of working in the courthouses goes to the sheriff's office. The police handle things, out in the streets, but the sheriff, Rochelle Bilal and her deputies are handling that. So a series of bills, including, mandating no masks and mandating identification, along with limiting, what the city can do, keeping prep and events off of city property and keeping city officials from working with ICE. That's going to go into city council. It's probably going to draw a lot of attention when those hearings do come, which is going to be soon, which is when the budget's also going to start. So expect a very busy spring in Philadelphia City Council.
Harrison, you wrote about one of our senators' position when it comes to ICE.
Yeah, for a while, John Fetterman, the Democratic senator, was he was pro-immigration policy that the current administration is doing, but he had yet to speak out against some of the other things that ICE was doing in the situation in Minneapolis. But I guess it was about 2 weeks ago at this point where he and McCormick kind of took a turn, Dave McCormick, the Republican senator, where they didn't necessarily put out a statement against immigration enforcement, but they did say that there needs to be greater transparency in an investigation into some of the things that have been happening up in Minnesota. So it seems like they're wanting to at least get their arms around the accountability aspect.
Harrison, let's keep the focus on Philadelphia with the current administration. You've been covering the controversy around the president's house, and there was just a ruling made about that. So can you give our viewers sort of an overview of what happened at the president's house, which is near the Liberty Bell, right?
Yeah, Marco's also been on this as well. The initial executive order was from the beginning of Trump's second term, where they ordered the Department of the Interior or the National Park Service to take down any sort of signage or information that might be disparaging of American history. And the president's house in Philly includes information and exhibits about slavery and some of the enslaved people that Washington and some of the other folks had in the city. And those were taken down a couple of weeks ago as part of the executive order, and now that's gone into the legal system. A judge ruled recently to force the Trump administration to put those exhibits back up, but I know the Trump administration also filed an appeal, so it's going to be a lot of back and forth there.
And Marco, the administration sort of said, "Oh, well, we were going to put them back up anyway, right?" Was that sort of their answer? But they're also going to fight this.
Fight this. The appeal's already been filed. They didn't actually say they were going to put the things back, which is an interesting decision to make when the judge who's making the ruling is literally across Market Street and can see it. She actually went down to the site the Monday after a Friday hearing to observe the conditions. Not only were the exhibits gone and it looked like it had been stripped like a car, there was at least a couple inches of snow.
The displays, up there. Just for our viewers, the displays sort of had the text and the pictures taken off, but you can sort of see the remnants of that. So it's sort of an eyesore.
Yeah, it's really awkward to be in there. I went out beforehand and it felt like you walked into someone's house and everything was stolen. And it was really odd and really uncomfortable. There are monitors that are just blank. There were videos that ran. Anyone who's been out there, it's the north end of Independence Mall. So back another block is the hall. In between is the Liberty Bell Pavilion, where it's been now for almost 20 years. And at the front end is what was the original presidential executive house, in which he kept 9 enslaved Africans illegally, because at that point Pennsylvania said, no, you can't save people and you can't bring them in. There were some shenanigans done to skirt the law, but the issue was that the Trump administration does not want this discussed. Now, when they went in to look at it, the exhibits, which are large, some are these large ceramic glass, and some are large metal panels that had text on it, and along with these videos, they're being kept right now in the National Constitution Center, which is about a block up. So, but going onto the site itself, which the judge can see from the federal courthouse on the opposite side of Market Street.
Right,
So
which is
to
on the
not
other
put that
corner.
up
Yeah.
is so to not put it up is brazen at the least, if not outright, disregarding this. Now, when we heard the response from the Department of the Interior on Tuesday, they said they were going to offer different interpretive materials, was their word, different interpretive materials regarding slavery to be put up in Independence Hall, which I thought was pretty interesting as one who's a history major and someone who's been in Independence Hall and is also a legitimate fan of the musical 1776, because I'm old. But the idea of having it there and confronting it takes away from the point of the president's house is also called the Slavery Memorial. It is specifically there to acknowledge this history with the president and what's been done. Philadelphia, not just, known for being the first capital, home of many abolitionists, both black and white, part of the Underground Railroad. If you go through South Jersey or the Pennsylvania suburbs, you see that history. That is a point of civic pride in Philadelphia, almost as much as cheesesteaks and soft pretzels. So to take away from that, something the city and the government worked on together, which was really driven home during the hearings, in which former city, administrators said, here's what we did together and here's how much it worked. And this was a labor that went beyond the opening almost 20 years ago.
Kylie, speaking of landmarks and historical sites, you wrote about how climate change can affect some of those places in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so I did an article where I was looking at what are some of the climate threats to Pennsylvania's many historical sites. As Marco was saying, Pennsylvania has a rich history in this country, and there are a lot of vulnerable historical buildings in Pennsylvania. Also, because of our topography and our weather patterns, they are very vulnerable to flooding and to rainfall. And Pennsylvania climate change makes rainfall more intense. It makes weather more unpredictable. It makes storms more severe. And we've already seen some of the impacts of those changes to our weather patterns on our historical sites. So my story, I mainly focus on the Fairmount Waterworks, which people in Philadelphia will be very familiar with. It's an icon of the city. It's right in front of the Art Museum and right on the Schuylkill River. And that's a collection of buildings that dates to the early 19th century. It once powered the water system for the whole city. And at the time it was built, it was seen as this kind of engineering marvel. It was a real point of civic pride for the city at the time it was built and for a long time afterward. Very much seen as this modern innovation in technology to bring people clean water. But because of where it is, right on the river, and the fact that it was designed to have water flowing through it, it's obviously really vulnerable to flooding. This has been an issue from the beginning of the building's history. So it's not like it's a surprise, but with climate change, we're seeing storms and flooding that are not normal and are really, an aberration from what the people who run that site and work really hard to preserve it have seen. And so in 2021, when Hurricane Ida hit Philly, which I'm sure we all remember caused crazy flooding all over the city, it really, really damaged the waterworks. It's right on the river, as I said, and so the water came into the building. It rose many feet. It blew out the windows and doors. They still haven't finished repairing the damage from Ida, which was in 2021. And so in the wake of that, they're really trying to figure out what do we do when the next Ida comes? We need to make sure that we have protocols in place so that we can rescue and move as much material out of the buildings as possible so that it won't be damaged. And then they're also thinking more long term, what are the resilience things we can build.
All right, before we run out of time, Harrison, I just want to give our viewers a little snapshot of the 3rd district race that you've been covering, and you did a profile of one of the candidates.
Yeah, Dr. Ayla Stanford. If you're Philly-based, you might have heard her name. She was big in the during the COVID-19 pandemic in getting vaccination and testing out to low-income communities in Philly. She's also opened up community health centers like the one on 21st and Lehigh Ave. But that's a really crowded primary. It's also the Dwight Evans district. He's retiring. It is actually the bluest district in the United States. So the primary there's about a dozen Democrats. It's going to be closely contested, and whoever comes out of there is pretty much going to be guaranteed that seat.
Okay. And Marco, you covered another one of the candidates from that race. Senator Sharif Street received the endorsement of the Philadelphia City Committee.
This month, he received a formal vote, winning not all of the wards, but an overwhelming amount to earn the city's endorsement. Bob Brady had mentioned this in a speech back in October when he was out at one of the union halls that he was probably going to get the endorsement. This is the former state party chair. This is the son of former Mayor John Street. This is someone who's been in that seat in the district for quite a few years and has done, a very impressive job of it. He represents North Philly. He represents more of the moderate coalition building. He's very close with Mayor Sherrell Parker. I had a chance to interview him on primary day 2023. He brought up the idea that, this was part of a new generation, the Gen Xers taking power here. He is going to be I'd say prohibitive favorite, very, very highly for him to win the race outright. He could probably even get a majority. What's really going to be interesting is the petition period has begun. And so by March 10th, we'll know who's going to get on the ballot. And whoever makes it on there is going to be in for a very challenging 2 months. Hopefully we get a chance to talk with them at the Tribune. Hopefully they get a chance to talk with Harrison at City and State as well.
All right, well, we're going to have to end it there. I'd like to thank my guests, Kylie Bentz and Marco Serino and Harrison Can from City and State, PA. And thank you for watching Journalist Roundtable. I'm Corey Clark. Good night.
Full episodes of politics and policy content like the program you just listened to are available to stream with the PCN Select app. Discover other shows like The Capitol Preview, On the Issues, candidate interviews, and more. To learn more about PCN's mission and to support PCN with a donation, visit PCNTV.com. This link and others can be found in our show notes. We appreciate your support.